Millions in Turkey are protesting. These protests brought people from very different political identities together in the name of democracy. A court ordered Erdoğan's most prominent political rival, Istanbul Mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu, to prison on corruption charges this week.
Dimdik ayakta olacağımı bütün milletim bilsin.
İmamoğlu's arrest sparked massive protests. That day, 100,000 people gathered at Saraçhane, where the municipal building is located. The number multiplied each day until it reached millions. His arrest marks a turning point. The question is whether anyone who would win against Erdoğan would be allowed to run against him. President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan has been in power for 24 years. İmamoğlu won the municipal elections in Istanbul in 2019, depriving Erdoğan's AK Party of massive financial resources and a symbol of their public support. Elections were repeated, and İmamoğlu widened his margin. He won yet again in this year's March 31 local elections. The Istanbul mayor was set to emerge as the opposition's presidential candidate on March 23 in a primary held by the Republican People's Party, the main opposition. With İmamoğlu detained 4 days earlier, and his name the only one on the ballot, the primary was symbolic, and yet following days of energized protests, over 15 million votes, more than a quarter of the entire voting population, were cast in the primary. The police have been responding to the protests with tear gas and rubber bullets. Thousands of protesters, as well as journalists, have been taken into custody, and many have been arrested. The crackdown from the police and the judiciary are becoming more brutal each day. Youngsters are getting hit by gas canisters, and those who join the protests risk being taken into custody from their homes in early morning hours. The mainstream media has either been ignoring the protests or repeating the government's narrative. While CNN International was broadcasting the protests live, CNN Türk was looking elsewhere. Opposition leader Özgür Özel announced an initial boycott list of companies and media outlets that are closely tied to Erdoğan's regime, a list that is expected to grow. There are also calls for a general strike, though it hasn't yet materialized.
Saraçhane'yi göreni siz de görün, görmeyeni yerin dibine gömün.
Turkey has one of the highest inflation rates in the world, and the tight fiscal policy used to combat it has hurt the working class the most. In short, people are becoming poorer and less free. The events of the past week, what the protesters see as an assault on their political will, have fueled the largest protests in a decade. Even if it's yet unknown whether these protests will lead to a fundamental political change, it's certain that there is a growing, solidifying, energized opposition against Erdoğan's regime. These protests are the strongest indicators of a change to come, a change whose direction and timing is still undetermined.